We've got an amazing panel for you today. I am just delighted to have been asked to moderate this group of really amazing professionals. We've got CEOs from a variety of different companies in different sectors, different sizes, all who have made commitments to take climate action and build sustainability into their operations. Some of them have started with the express purpose of developing a sustainable product. Some of them are larger corporations that have existed for a long time and have over time built in different actions in order for them to explore the triple bottom line. So not just profit, but also helping people and helping the planet. And so I'm really glad to introduce the panel. We are going to start, because each of these businesses is a little bit different, we're going to start with a brief explanation of what this business is, and that will allow us to understand the sustainability actions at a deeper level as we go through the panel. So today we have Mark Adams. He's the president and CEO of Sebago Technics. Andrew Frederick, the CEO of Croft, who I had the pleasure of having on our radio show earlier today to learn all about his sustainable building technologies. We have Richard Harrison, the CEO of Standard Biocarbon Corporation. Wait till you hear about his product. It has so many different applications, very exciting. And lastly, we have Philip Jean, who is the CEO of Piper Shores, which is a business that has integrated sustainability into its work. So let's have a welcoming applause for this great panel. All right, so Mark, we're going to start with you to explain a little bit about Sebago Technics, and we're going to go then to Andrew, then to Richard, then to Philip, and we'll get like brief 1 to 2 minute synopses of what your businesses are, and then we'll dive into what you've done. So go ahead, Mark.
Thank you, and good afternoon. Sebago Technics is a wholly Maine-based and focused, 100% employee-owned, multidiscipline engineering and land development firm. We were founded in 1981. We have over 130 professionals across 4 offices here in Maine. We offer more than 15 integrated service areas. In plain terms, we shape the built and the natural environments. Every project we do involves navigating the intersection of land, water, infrastructure, regulation, and community. And increasingly, that intersection is defined and influenced by climate. Sea level rise, intensifying storms, aging infrastructure, shifting land use patterns are not abstract policy concerns for us. They're the daily conditions of our work. Ultimately, our job is to translate complex land and climate data into designs and solutions that communities and clients can afford, build, and live with.
Thank you. That was very succinct.
Yes.
And you do a lot of technical work and then bring it into projects, which is very important for our community to have that expertise. So thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Andrew, let's hear about your building technology at Croft.
Sure. Croft is based in Midcoast, Maine. We make prefab buildings, I guess, at the end of the day, and we have a panelization system where we actually utilize materials like wheat straw, which is an agricultural byproduct, other insulations like sheep's wool, and ultimately our buildings act as a carbon storage medium. So it's a climate-friendly product, and we've been around for about 5 years and are growing very quickly.
And I learned something from Andrew before, the concept of embodied carbon. So you want to explain that to the audience?
Sure, yeah. So it turns out that the lion's share of carbon emissions with new construction are actually in the stuff that the building is made out of. So that's the problem we set out to solve. It turns out that plant-based materials like straw turn out to be these sort of powerhouses of carbon capture and storage. Photosynthesis is just naturally locking up carbon from the atmosphere. So we take those materials and we lock them away inside buildings for generations.
Thank you. All right. Richard, love to hear about your industry.
Hi, I'm Richard Harrison. I'm the CEO of Standard Biocarbon. We're based up in Enfield, Maine, just north of Bangor. And what Standard does is we take waste wood residuals and we convert that into organic carbon, and that material goes into lots of things that everybody uses every day. you all have seen organic carbon in your fireplace when you're burning wood, and you've got that char that's left over. That's somewhat analogous to what our process produces, but when we finish it, it can be used for everything from improving soil health to capturing chemicals such as PFAS chemicals, all the way to being upgraded to go into batteries that go into the upgrading of the power grid. So we're making material for utility scale batteries as well. So that's it.
Great, thanks. And Philip, Piper Shores.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Pleased to be here. I'm the CEO of Piper Shores. Piper Shores is a life plan retirement community based in Scarborough, Maine. We are adjacent to Higgins Beach, if you're familiar with that area. We have approximately 425 residents that live at Piper Shores and about 280 employees. It is a community, obviously, that is very energy intensive. We are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We are a growing community with 2 campuses. And we obviously are very committed to sustainability. Our journey started a number of years ago, and we're really excited about the work that we've already accomplished and the work that we're really embarking on as an organization. I think, I can't see them, but I think there might be some slides up there that are illustrating a few parts about Piper Shores, including things such as pollinators, composting work that we've done, collaborative work we've done with the University of New Hampshire, and other things that we'll talk about this afternoon.
That's great. Thank you so much. All right, so we now know a little bit about each one of these businesses. And my next question is about how each of these businesses have built sustainability into their business model. And we're going to start with Andrew and Richard because their products are directly sustainable products. So we'll start with you, and then we're going to go to Mark and to Philip to talk about in your larger businesses that do lots of different things, how you've integrated into the operations. So Andrew, your product I understand the best. So I'm going to ask you to start, and then I'm learning more and more about Richard's over our conversations. I told him I was very confused about exactly what it was at the beginning, and now I'm getting that it has many, many applications, many of them within sustainable technologies. So let's start with you, Andrew, with your panels.
Sure. I mean, sustainability is the product. It really is the founding reason for the company itself. And I think Croft wouldn't exist if it wasn't for an attempt to figure out a way to kind of embed environmental stewardship into the realm of, I know they're weird bedfellows, but into the realm of construction. Like, people are out there making new homes, making new factories, building new AI server farms, and all of these buildings are contributing to about 40% of humanity's emissions every year. So if we can sort of crack that nut and figure out how to fix buildings, we're sort of like halfway to solving the climate challenge. And that's really our work, is just sort of zeroing out the roadblocks to adoption for these climate-friendly materials.
And as the founder, did you start the company with the idea that you wanted to make a difference for the planet, or did you start the idea because you thought you could make money?
For the planet. Money really wasn't part of the equation until the business sort of like took off of its own accord, and a much smarter business partner showed up and joined forces with me. So now we know how to make money, not just sort of do good for the planet.
So you started with a great idea, and then you brought in somebody with business acumen in order to make it really profitable.
Yeah, and I it's interesting that, and I would encourage anyone who has a deep environmental ethos to just like go figure out what you're good at and start a company doing it. Because Croft has been profitable since day one. We've never taken any private equity financing. So you really can just build a business from basically nothing if you just align it with your values.
And I'm just going to ask you one follow-up question, Andrew, because one of the major challenges that Maine has right now is our housing shortage. And so you are doing something in the sustainability realm, but also helping with housing. Can you describe a little bit about the intersection of those two goals?
Sure. Yeah, it's not really carbon storage if we're making buildings that don't last. And so we're really deeply incentivized to make durable, long-lasting, high-quality buildings. And the U.S. is not great at that. As someone who's very familiar with building science, even just standard building code is quite problematic. And we see rates of about 40% of all construction in the US, 47% has mold and mildew problems. That is a direct result of the decisions we make when we go and build these things. Physics interact with our buildings in really interesting ways. So we're here to solve not just the climate problem, but the housing quality problem as well. And we've sort of developed a system in-house that's really friendly to new entries to the workforce as well. So affordability is right on the forefront. I fully recognize no one is going to adopt a new technology if it's ridiculously expensive. So we actually find if people sort of play by the rules of our prefab system, a per square foot cost of the structural shell of the building, we can get it down to like 50% of custom new home construction.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. All right. So, Richard, tell us a little bit about how sustainability fits into your business model at Standard Biocarbon.
Absolutely. So, Standard Biocarbon's business, really the foundation of it is sustainability. We start with waste wood, which is the result of photosynthesis over the years. And that waste wood would either get burned and emits carbon dioxide, or it would sit on the ground and rot and decompose, also emitting carbon dioxide. So what we do is we take that wood material and we process it where we can effectively separate out carbon, and we can make use of the energy that you would normally see if you were burning a fire. Well, we capture that energy and we use that energy to fuel our entire process. So it is a way of extracting carbon that nature got a hold of and then doing something with it. So what we do with it is we modify the atoms so that it can go into different materials. And those are things that show up as insulation in a house, or it could be a material that goes in a battery, or it could be in carpet fibers or carpet backing. All of those applications have got carbon in them as a fundamental part of the chemistry. So our business is a way of sequestering carbon, but putting it into products that have value and making a business around the sale of those products. So our customers take that material, they put it into their products, and then that carbon is now sequestered in those products until something happens with that product. That's a much more sustainable outcome than it would be if it was just wood left on the ground to rot.
So when the company was started, what was the motivation? Was it, again, you wanted to make a solid contribution to reducing carbon pollution? Or was it something that you saw a market for a new product? What was it?
It really did start around sustainability. Clearly, there was an investment thesis behind it as well, so it had to be a profitable business. But it was very much around sustainability and what can we do with this wonderful biomass bonanza that exists here in the state of Maine. So, there are just hundreds and hundreds of thousands of tons of this material that gets wasted. And so what can we do with it? So that was the origin.
Okay, and so when you're producing this product from what would have been waste and what would have created more carbon pollution, and now it's going into products that are actually sustainable technologies. Was that an intentional move?
Absolutely. Yeah, so carbon is in, as I said, it's in, basically everything organic. And so, whereas if you think of the biochar industry, the origins of that industry were all around agriculture. And so how do you improve soil health? It's great for water retention. It has all kinds of wonderful things. In fact, our material is right around the corner in the Portland Sea Dogs baseball park. So it's got our biocarbon is in that facility. But that market is fundamentally dependent upon subsidies. So being able to trade carbon credits and find biomass that is basically somebody will pay you to take it. which is one type of a business model, but that's not the plant that we built is much more sophisticated than what's needed to just create something that you would put out in a row crop. And because we can produce materials to very precise standards, we can then sell that material to companies that need it as part of the input into making their products. And so that was the combined vision. It started with sustainability, but it was very much around building a business where product sales were the driver of revenue more so than carbon credits.
Got it. And so in when we asked Andrew a little bit about the development of his panels and how it intersects with one of Maine's major challenges, housing, you also have mentioned that the product that you're creating is addressing another big Maine challenge, which is PFAS. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
So PFAS chemicals, these are the forever chemicals that are now so pervasive in the water table and in our soils. Maine in particular is having issues with PFAS chemicals that were spread on farms and not knowing that the chemicals were in some of the material that was used to fertilize the soils. And so one of the attributes of a form of biochar that we're able to produce is that it has the ability to bind with these PFAS chemical molecules. And so it keeps them locked up in the carbon. But it also is a fantastic habitat for the microbiome that is able to metabolize those same chemicals.
Wow.
So what a win-win.
You put that together, and so now you have a way of at first sequestering the PFAS so that it doesn't go into the water table, and then secondarily is accelerating the ability for those chemicals to actually be destroyed by nature's biology.
So keeping with this theme of being sustainable but also hitting on other goals, Philip, I want to turn to you because part of what you do is take care of people in an aging state. And I'd like you to explain a little bit about how you're integrating sustainability into the way that Piper Shores operates while you're also meeting a huge need for our population.
Sure. Great question. So when I think back to the founders and the pioneers at Piper Shores, it was built on the premise that we wanted to be a sustainable organization. We have over 183 acres, 109 of which is conserved space. But a lot of the work that happened earlier on really started with residents. The people living in our communities who really had a strong passion, commitment, and dedication to wanting us to be an environmentally friendly, sustainable organization. So going back a few years, we worked with our board. It became part of our master strategic plan. We hired a sustainability and landscape coordinator who's actually here with us today. And we really made sure that it became a true business imperative, sort of part of our culture, the fabric of the organization. And we've worked with Thornton Tomasetti on developing a plan that covers everything from, of course, water, energy conservation to electrification, transportation, education, waste reduction, and all of those things and more have really become really common to what we do each and every day. Not surprisingly, we're a very energy-intensive organization. We're healthcare. So trying to find ways to become more sustainable has been an ongoing challenge, particularly in an industry that is so highly regulated, that really is energy-intensive.
So the regulations, they probably force you to do certain things that may not be necessarily sustainable. Maybe you can give an example.
Sure. Well, fun fact for the day, and a few of my colleagues here who work in healthcare will appreciate this. Most people don't know, but working in we're in the sort of the post-acute sector, if you will, and our industry is the second highest regulated industry outside of nuclear energy.
Wow.
So that tells you a little bit about how regulated we really are. So
I don't know if that's a fun fact.
Well, it's not fun
for
probably,
you.
but it's a true fact, sure. So when you look at that, we're certainly looking at ways that we can impact change. One area, for example, certainly would be on waste reduction. That's been a stronghold for many, many years for us. We continue to do more and more work. We've worked on the resident side of the house first, but now we're working with staff. With 280 plus staff, it's a real opportunity for us to be able to reduce waste, care for our environment, and to really focus on the climate.
Can you give us a couple examples of what you think has been most impactful from your sustainability actions?
I think some of the most impactful stuff First would be on landscape. We've done a lot of work on everything from removing invasives to working on native plants to really creating a sustainable environment. And that really is something that has been largely driven by our residents. I would go so far as to say, in the earlier years, a lot of the efforts at Piper Shores were really resident-driven and management-supported. And we've tried to really make sure that as part of our master strategic plan, we've placed more and more focus on really being a leader and not a follower in the industry. And that's really been an important change for us as an organization.
Thank you.
Sure.
So, Mark, turning to Sebago Technics, my organization has had the pleasure of working with you. You provide all kinds of consulting and technical and engineering services to help folks develop projects, implement projects. I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about how sustainability factored into the founding of the company and then how it guides your business model now.
Yeah, thank you. Sustainability for us is embedded into our work and our company, but in very different ways than our other panelists here. Our work, of course, is about creating sustainable solutions. That's driven by regulations, it's driven by client demand, it's driven by climate strategies, state goals, community goals, and the like. And at the end of the day, our job is to come up with sustainable solutions for whatever it is a client is looking to build. We've been doing that for a very long time, even when we didn't know we were doing it or nobody else knew.
Before it was cool.
Right? Before it was cool, before it was called this, right? It's been a part of design forever at the end of the day, using the resources, using the landscape in the most effective and least environmentally impactful way possible. That's sort of an approach that all design professionals take at the end of the day. There's always affordability, there's always meeting the regulations and matching those two sometimes along with what the client's needs are. The other part that is different, and Philip talked about it with Piper Shores a bit, and it's not about climate per se, but sustainability for us is built into our ownership model. So we are a 100% employee-owned company. We have been for a very, very long time. It was our founder, in fact, that decided that the people that had made our company successful should be the ones that benefit from it going forward. And that causes us to look at business, sustainability, long-term planning, what our mission is in a very different way than companies that are either publicly traded or privately owned otherwise. So we're all about making sure that our company is sustainable, not only for our employees/owners, but for our clients in the long term.
So firms like yours get to pick and choose which clients you'd like to have, like a law firm, like a lobbyist firm. Do you have any principles that guide what kind of projects you're going to help?
Yeah, we cover a very broad spectrum. There's a lot of areas of need in Maine. We think that our solutions of integrated services is more effective and efficient and yields better designs rather than separate disciplines amongst separate consultants or sub-consultants. But at the end of the day, we choose to work with people that want to do good projects. There are obviously developers, clients, all sorts of different folks that are looking to do it the cheap way, the fast way, what can we do and just get me up and running and helping me make a buck or do whatever I need. Really, I would tell you that not only our organization, but the regulatory and permitting environment doesn't really allow for that very much these days, in a good way.
So thoughtful.
Yeah, and we won't,
Yep.
we won't skip regulations. We won't, try to come up with something that kind of skirts whatever it is, might create an environmental impact.
All right. Because it's post-lunch and all of us have full stomachs, we're going to mix it up with a couple of rapid-fire questions. All right, we'll start with you, Andrew. The first question is about mitigation. What's your top strategy within your company to mitigate greenhouse gases? And the second question is, what's the top strategy, if you have one, to become more resilient to extreme weather that's related to climate change? I'll give you Give you a couple minutes.
Oh, no.
Couple seconds.
Good
Are you
stuff.
ready?
Oh, yeah.
All right, you go, Andrew. And again, rapid fire. So we got to keep everybody here awake.
Okay. How do we deal with mitigating our climate impact? I'll start there. It's worth noting that, we sort of take energy for granted. Like a single barrel of oil, just one barrel of oil, contains the energy in terms of like calories of 23,000 hours of human labor. So that's 11 and a half years of work, and we're burning about 96 million barrels a day. So we've got 2.2 trillion people coming to Earth at the beginning of every shift and leaving.
You're dazzling me with the numbers.
We take that energy for granted, and so we as a company are very focused on just mitigating the amount of energy we use in production. So a lot of that is learning how to communicate the right information at the right time to the right person so that projects can get built effectively without just burning a bunch of fossil fuels in the background to accomplish a task.
Thank you. Richard.
So yeah, along the same lines, ours is also about energy. So we access more energy than we can use in our manufacturing process. So what we look for are ways that we can optimize the use of that energy, design our plants so that we are stepping down. So we use a little bit of it, we pass it to another process, we use a little bit more and pass it down the line. So the goal is that we don't want to lose any energy in the form of heat that just gets vented into the atmosphere. So that's the biggest area that we seek to improve on.
Great. Mark.
If you force me to pick one, I'm going to pick data acquisition. So increasingly, even in the work we do, and it's about the land and the water, as I described, is about acquiring data, land-based data that we can use to analyze, to plan with, and in a new twist that we can use to archive what is or what once was. And that information is invaluable as we try to develop sustainable solutions, climate-friendly solutions for the work that we do.
Okay, I thought you were going to go down on AI or data centers, but
well, it gets there. Well, not about designing them, but AI will get there.
Yeah,
certainly part
great.
of our work as well.
Thank you. All right, Philip.
I would say, as I mentioned earlier, we're a very energy-intensive organization being in healthcare. So for us, I think it would be ways that we continue to reduce energy usage and do it through electrification, working with our HVAC boiler systems, looking at our transportation, among a number of other things, where we're open all the time, we never close. It's a lot of opportunity for us to be able to look for ways that we can really reduce energy usage.
So you've talked about Piper Shores, you've talked about wastewater reduction, conserved land, and now electrification. And then you said the word transportation, which I always love. Can you tell us a little bit more about the transportation strategy?
We have obviously a very large fleet of vehicles to transport residents to and from our community for various things, shopping, medical appointments, and so looking to purchase buses that are not gas powered. And right now the technology isn't truly caught up in our industry with that, so we're sort of looking to see what comes out over the next few years with the goal that we want to totally electrify our shuttles, our vehicles, over the course of the next 10 to 15 years.
Do any of your companies have electric vehicles that are company vehicles? Not yet. Okay.
We have a few.
You have a few.
Not our buses, but vans and vehicles.
That's great. All right, we're going to do the resilience flash question right now. So if you are at all involved in trying to make your business more resilient to climate change, or you're helping the community somehow through your product to be more resilient, love to hear your answers on that. Andrew.
Yeah, for us, obviously we are a materials-heavy industry, so it's really about localizing our supply chain. We sort of own our own supply chain anyway because we use unique materials in this industry, so that's really where I have turned in my work, is working with the blue economy, working with local farmers, making sure we have a well-established local supply chain.
Two areas for us. We are trying to enclose as much of our wood area as we can to keep things dry. So the more moisture we have to deal with, the more energy we consume. And then the second is a grid resiliency opportunity. We're co-located on a lumber mill, and that lumber mill has an interconnect with the main power grid, and there are real stability issues when we have weather events. we generate so much excess power that we're looking at taking some of our residual power, converting it into electricity, and then keeping it behind the meter to stabilize the microgrid where the plant's operating. So those are the two areas.
For us, it's about helping communities and our clients plan for resiliency, coastal resiliency planning, sea level rise monitoring, designing and engineering both built and natural-based solutions to help adapt to climate change and resiliency.
This one's a little bit of a tougher one for us, again, given what we've described us to be like, but we have designed through our long-term sustainability plan a lot of resiliency around all the things we've talked about around water, energy reduction. But the one thing I want to mention, which I think for us is really important, is like other organizations, we can't do it alone. We really depend on strong partnerships with a lot of organizations, which we fortunately have developed over time. I think our resiliency is going to be largely premised on the fact where we're privately funded and we have to make large capital investments, which is what we've really done. That to us has helped develop a platform by which we can become a resilient organization.
And one that I thought of, and you can tell me whether this is true for Piper Shores, is one of the major vulnerabilities that Maine people have is to heat, because we don't have a lot of cooling. And you said that you were transitioning your HVAC over to electrification. So do you have heat pumps that are able to also cool for some of your older residents?
We do have heat pumps in some of our premises. As we renovate, we're moving away from gas powered to either a hybrid model or just a heat pump model to try to really move in that direction.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
All right, my next question is really about the business case for other businesses in this room to start taking some sustainability actions. And it could be about your consumers, your supply chain, your employees, and retention, or about profit. So I'd love to hear, and we can start where whoever's ready, to talk about why your business thinks that taking sustainability action is really good for your business. Who would like to jump in? Andrew?
Yeah, sure. Just to make the business case, I can only speak for my experience, but I started this in 2020, right smack dab in the middle of the pandemic. Great time to start a business. If you're, wait for the next one. It'll be fun. For the first 4 years, that business tripled in size every year. We moved from a leaky, cold warehouse on the waterfront in Rockland. Now we have 20 employees and 20,000 square feet of production space, and we can build a single-family home in 2 weeks and put it on a job site in 2 days. It's truly transformative what can be accomplished when you just line up your climate goals and your housing goals in one go.
Anybody else?
I'll go for us. It starts with mission, and our mission is to help our communities grow and develop in ways that benefit our state and the citizens that live in those communities. It makes perfect sense for us. Our employees are increasingly interested in this work and in the skills and technology that it takes to do this work. It very clearly and very bluntly is a growth and market opportunity for us. The work is increasing. The regulations, as I mentioned, sort of steer us in this direction, but you can do them, as you asked the question of me, you can do them sort of to be compliant, or you can do them because it's the right thing to do.
I would sort of echo a little bit of what Mark said. To me, it's about our commitment to our culture, to our mission, as to who we are. Again, a lot of the people who live at Piper Shores, it's really foundational to who they are, all their experiences, and what they want our organization to be founded and to continue to live on, and to our commitment to where we want to be as an organization. I think we also think about for the future generations, thinking about grandchildren, people that have come after us, wanting to leave it better than we found it, and to make sure that we continue to do that good work.
So Mark and Philip, when you're thinking about larger businesses trying to take sustainability into the operational model, what advice do you have for those out there that are thinking about, not sure whether we can do a heat pump, not sure if we could buy an EV, but some easy first steps that larger businesses can take?
Mature or starting up?
Mature.
Mature businesses. Yeah, I think as with many growth opportunities, it's about the where the need is. It's about identifying those needs. For us, it's coastal vulnerability, aging infrastructure, and even the energy burden that has been talked about. I also think for many of us that are established, it's about taking the competencies that you already have and intentionally targeting and organizing around those for, in this case, climate work. We all might use those buzzwords on our websites or in our marketing materials, but have we actually aligned ourselves internally and operationally to reflect that? We have people that are skilled in these areas. Do we organize them in a fashion and organize our workflows and then make it known that this is work that we're intentional on doing? I think building on those competencies and capacities that you already have is a great solution. And then the last thing I would say on this is don't wait for the clients to come to you, right? The clients already know what issues they're experiencing. They're looking for solutions. And we often already have those solutions, at least for the very standard kind of issues to address, and we need to go to them with those solutions.
Two words come to mind for me. One is, I think, the first is alignment. I think alignment with your board or your owner or operator. In our case, with having our board, our residents, our staff all aligned towards a common goal, and making sure that we live to that goal. We commit the organizational commitments, resources that we need. So the other word to me is investments. Prepared to make the necessary financial, human capital investments that are really important to making sure that you do good work and that it's sustainable work that you can continue into the future.
Great. So now I want to hear about the startup space. What advice do the two of you have for those companies that are kind of just beginning or accelerating?
Well, in our case, I think it's make it visible. In a startup environment, you are so busy doing so many things, and what we've tried to do is to build a culture that's very mission driven, and so we get very much to why are we doing this? Besides getting a paycheck, what's the point? And sustainability is part of it, sort of how we work together as a team, how we interface and work with our partners and suppliers and all that. And so we try and build a culture that looks beyond ourselves. And if you do that, and then if sustainability, like in our business, sustainability is a fundamental part of what we do. So we talk about that part of it all day long. But every individual makes 100 decisions a day that affect sustainability. So if you can bring something to the surface like that and just put it on your list of things that you're checking in on and put some value to it by following up with it, recognizing it, have people talk about it, see if you can get that kind of thing to spread. Those are simple wins that it's hard to tabulate what your contribution's been, but people will talk about it. It becomes, it's something that they take pride in, and that just gets added into that overall ethos. And the culture of a startup is so important for its success. That's through my career, that's one of the areas where I've seen startups fail, is they're so busy fighting with each other about basic values and among the startup team that they just never really get on the page where they're able to successfully address hard problems.
Great.
Yeah, I think thankfully the flywheel is now turning. I don't think we're in scrappy startup mode anymore, but I think there is particularly in my sector of the industry, there's a lot of interest in biomaterials right now, and there's been a big push for what people are calling the wartime mobilization of biomaterials to sort of get these things to market. And that's like an interesting metaphor. I think for a startup, particularly here in Maine, I love the metaphor of think like Apollo 13. Like, you have a finite number of resources at your disposal, and you have to get the job done. And if you can make something better or cheaper or easier for your customer, people will come to you. If you can do all three, people will definitely come to you. But you have to think from your customer's perspective first.
All right, we're going to do 2 more rapid fires, trying to see if everybody's still awake out there. And they're going to be about policy. So the question is a yes or no answer. Has the 180-degree policy turn that DC has taken affected your business directly? Andrew?
No.
Yes.
Yes?
No.
No? No. Okay, so I'm going to come back to you about yes and tell us what has happened.
It's fundamentally changed the investment climate for capital-intensive industries that are growing, and the private capital markets, and there hasn't been an adjustment that's been able to keep up with it. So it makes it very difficult to get out of sort of that second valley. It's easier to get stuck in that valley now.
Yep. So acknowledging the challenge that Richard is facing, I have to say that having 3 no's is a very optimistic thing for me to hear. And it keys into what Bob Keefe was talking about during the keynote, of saying that while we do have these challenges with the feds kind of pulling back from their leadership, there's so much more that can happen at the state level, at the local level, and with private sector to keep the momentum going. So my next question is also rapid fire, but it's about state policy. We're in the middle of a gubernatorial race. We're going to have a new governor next year this time. What should the new governor do to try to support businesses that want to take sustainability and climate action? And maybe I'll mix it up, and I won't call on you first because I keep on asking you to come up with the quickest, and I'll start with Mark.
So, in my opinion, the most important thing that the next administration, state administration, could do is to maintain and build on the existing commitments and rules rather than dismantle them.
The existing commitment to what?
The existing commitments to sustainability, the climate, the Maine Won't Wait plan as an example, rather than dismantle or even significantly amend them.
So you're talking about the state's Maine Won't Wait plan and many of its funding programs that are in place right now.
Energy goals, waste
energy
management goals, all of those. Environmental, where some changes that we've made recently at the Department of Environmental Protection, they're all good, and in work that we do and in the clients that we have, that change and uncertainty, even sometimes when it's a change to further it, is disruptive, right? These are ambitious goals, they're good regulations, we're heading in great directions. Keep that, to use the word momentum, keep that momentum going, because it takes time to really infiltrate it. And all of us understanding what those goals are and working to achieve them is really the best way to get towards accomplishing them.
Great. So your advice to the next governor is stay the course. Stay the course. All right. Anybody else have an answer on that? You want to go?
I would say, to me, enhanced incentives for building electrification, energy efficiency are huge, especially for private industry. It's a great opportunity to be able to support work that really does, at the end of the day, have a major impact to climate change.
Andrew, you ready?
I'm ready. Yeah. Right now, we're trying to build 84,000 new homes in Maine by 2030. We also want to have our carbon emissions by 2045. Those 2 goals, coming back to our whole embodied carbon thing, those are actually incompatible right now, unless we start building things a different way. So I would encourage them to start looking at the building code and encouraging the use of more natural materials. And focus on permitting, frankly. Those 84,000 homes, at the current rate we permit things in the Northeast, it would take 945 years just to pull the permits to get those buildings built. So I think if we can speed up permitting and figure out how to streamline that, we would do well.
Okay, and you're spurring me, so I cannot help adding that not only is it building more homes with the right stuff, it's also in the right places, so we don't have to travel as far to get around. Smart growth.
Absolutely, yeah. Density, smart growth, infill. We should be focusing on these things. I mean, we all love living here because there's lots of green space and natural beauty. Let's not ruin that while we build 84,000 new homes sprawled out across the landscape.
Yeah, because we love our Maine.
Yeah.
We love our Maine. All right, Richard.
I don't know that I've got a particular policy as much as just bringing a level of awareness. There are things like grid modernization projects that are sustainable. They're part of getting to a more sustainable footprint. But if you look at some of the equipment that's going into the modernization projects, it's all coming from petroleum and coal.
So we should use more sustainable products.
If we could just extend the concept of sustainability and go all the way down to the source materials, I'm not asking for a law, but just bring visibility to say, hey, at least ask the questions. Then it might open up the door for an industry, for a business like ours, which is really building off of the natural resources of the state of Maine. We can make the economic argument. We don't need a subsidy to make that case, but visibility would help.
Mark, do you want to add something?
Yeah, if you might, I wanted to pick up on what you said about smart growth and some of what you said about the demand in housing in this case. I see one of the biggest threats and challenges I see that we have as a state right now, and I'm only concerned about Maine, it may be happening other places, is that we're very singularly focused as individuals on our particular situation. And as we try to do the right thing in terms of development and growth or even sustainable activities, people have their own opinions and they're very often conflicting. And we see this all the time in our public work, our public sector work, planning board kind of work and so forth. Everyone is opposed to everything for their own individual reasons. And it's not that they're wrong about those, but those competitions, if you will, of interest is actually hurting our ability to progress and do things in the right way.
Yes, that is well said. And it's a big challenge, I know, at the municipal level, which is where I work, of trying to take all of those different opinions and come out with something that actually is bold and climate forward when there's so much personal interest in not having any change.
Yeah.
Yes, understood. As you are thinking about the next step for your businesses, what are you seeing as an innovation or an addition to your current business that would further your sustainability or your climate goals? Is it you're going to take place in policy advocacy? Is it that you're going to add a new service? You're going to double down on an operational improvement? What kind of thing is your next step? And I'm going to start with you, Philip, if that's okay, because I could tell you already had some great plans in mind that you've been doing with your board and your stakeholders.
Two things come to mind among the many, many things that we could probably talk about today. One is really around building infrastructure to support greater efficiency and long-term resiliency. We have a lot of infrastructure that we're 25 years old this year, and so there's a lot of opportunity as we modernize and we renovate to be able to do that. The other part that I think for us is really exciting is we're the minority in so many words in terms of healthcare. And there's a lot of opportunity for us to not be followers, but leaders. And we're excited about being able to do that. But in addition to that, we'd like to be able to use it as an opportunity to be able to make sure that staff have an opportunity to learn from us how they can contribute outside of work. And I think by doing that, we're giving back to the greater good.
Great. Can I go down the line here? We'll go Mark next.
I'm going to pick on a couple. One, and this follows my last comment. One is around community engagement. I think the process and the involvement of communities and citizens and businesses and communities in engaging and educating around this work, the need, the benefit, the brainstorming of solutions. We're engineers and landscape architects and the like, but often people living in communities, working in communities have the right answers. They may just not know how to technically make it happen. And I think that engagement and that understanding, that conversation yields a better result. That's an innovation in and of itself to get us to where we want to be. Secondly, I'll go to what I mentioned earlier around data acquisition. That is an innovation that we think we are at the forefront of, and this is around the data that is needed to do all of this work that we're talking about. I think that continuing to stay up on the tools and technologies that allow us to acquire that more efficiently, more accurately perhaps, and then finally sharing that data. If we look at something like coastal resiliency planning, Maine has a very unique coastline. There isn't about 100 feet that is anything similar to the next 100 feet. And having that data and planning that coastal resiliency in a more comprehensive way, not property by property, not even community by community, is a much better approach. And I think that's where innovation can happen.
Yeah, Sarah Mills-Knapp, who was up here before on behalf of GP-COG, has been doing a lot of work to see how we can make sure that the coast is a lot more resilient. But we know if somebody builds a seawall here, then that energy just reverberates off and goes down the coast. And so being able to think about it more holistically is really important for us to be able to put the most practicable solutions together. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
For us, it's expanding our capacity and bringing additional technical capabilities that would otherwise be outsourced to plants that are in other parts of the country, and effectively turning that infield, Orono area into a manufacturing and technology hub around the materials science of working with carbon atoms.
Yeah, we want to solve the fact that new construction has an accessibility problem and an affordability problem, right? And one of the ways to get people into more affordable housing is through retrofits. And so we're doing a lot of material R&D and product R&D for retrofits. But I also would encourage, everyone here to think about the way humans lived for tens of thousands of years before we really had cheap, plentiful fossil fuels to allow us to sprawl out with our housing developments. And that village scale development is really at the forefront of what we're working on. So aligning with like-minded developers, working on denser clustered housing, that's what we're really excited about.
So all of us here are building an ecosystem of trying to take more action in every way that we can, in an individual business, on a community level. And for these 4 businesses, I want to learn a little bit more about how you're contributing to that larger ecosystem in Maine, and specifically if there are ways that your work is helping us with data development and partnerships with higher ed, the development of a workforce here in Maine, because all of us have the responsibility to our own businesses, but also to try to help one another, because in Maine, we need to lift each other up all the time. So I'd like to hear how you're intersecting with the broader ecosystem of folks that are like-minded and are trying to do good things for the state. Go ahead, Andrew, jump right in.
So we've worked a lot with the University of Maine, with the Composite Center and the Advanced Manufacturing Lab. There's some great people up there. We use them for structural engineering often. I think the thing that gets really exciting to me is, putting engineering aside, thinking about creating a system that's more inviting to entry-level workforce people so they can start contributing to the housing crisis as well. And it's funny how much your work pivots from being a construction company to being a communications firm or information delivery firm. And I would point to sort of an allegory for that is IKEA, right? Everyone's probably put together a piece of IKEA furniture, but you don't go to a cocktail party.
Sadly, we probably all have.
Yeah. You don't then go to a cocktail party and introduce yourself as a furniture builder, right? And leveraging the sort of decentralized power of the layperson and getting them on board, it would be a great way to contribute to the housing crisis here without just resorting fully to automation at every turn.
Yeah, thank you.
In our world, it's 2 different ecosystems, but they do share a common link at the University of Maine at the Forest Products Institute. So our business is fundamentally based on the forest industry here. And so there's a great deal of collaboration all the way back to materials tracking. We were talking about data. We have to source, verify every piece of wood that we process. So there's that part of it. And then as we look down the road, we're adding more and more materials to what we can support the manufacturing of. And that requires more process engineering, chemical engineering, systems engineering. And so we've already started working at the University of Maine to put a testing lab in place that'll be operated there to help us with our own quality control. And then we're really looking to the Maine ecosystem to provide us with the engineering skills that we're going to need to grow our organization as we grow.
So you mean as part of your ecosystem,
Yep.
providing the workforce?
Yep.
Great.
Yep. Starting with interns.
Yeah.
I'll talk about three areas. One, the community resiliency planning and modeling that we've done for a few communities is one that was intentionally meant to be replicable and scalable to different communities, so that more of that assessment, more of that community conversation, and more of that planning for the future could occur in an efficient but engaged way. The second is in collaboration. We find the most innovation through the conversation and through the partnerships that we have, not only with communities, but of course with other firms that work, and agencies and universities that work in this space and are part of that conversation. That often yields the ideas that you might not come up with by yourselves individually. Lastly, in terms of higher ed, we have a few sort of collaborations and pieces of work. We've both worked with Bowdoin College recently and Portland Water District. I understand they're not higher ed, but it's the same project, on doing these geographic information systems, this asset mapping and tracking of their facilities so that they can do better planning for resiliency and adaptation. And then lastly, around talent acquisition, as you mentioned, that's where it's at. We actually have a very robust succession planning modeling that requires us to hire, develop, train, mentor folks as they come into our company for the future. And we do that in collaboration with the Rue Institute as one. We had them develop some very specific training for us for our business and our people. And we've begun conversations with the University of Maine. Like you, it has been an important pipeline for talent for us for a very long time. And we want to continue a conversation of how can you make sure that you're giving us folks, when they graduate, that are the most ready and educated in the areas that we see now, maybe not what we've traditionally saw as the highest priorities. And they're open to those conversations, and that's wonderful.
I know earlier I sort of mentioned the word partnerships, and obviously a lot of the work that we've done with EcoMaine, AgriCycle, Thornton Tomasetti, Scarborough Land Trust, and many other organizations has been really beneficial to us. I sort of consider us sort of like a living laboratory. We are an organization that has people there all the time. So we're a great place to be able to test new opportunities, ways to be more sustainable. We've done some of that work, which we're really proud of, with the University of New Hampshire, for example, where we had a Sustainability Institute, fellows who did some good work for us in the organization. We're looking to continue to explore that in Maine with the University of Southern Maine and University of New England as well.
Oh, that sounds great. So we're getting toward the end of this panel, and I'll share with the audience that this gathering is one of my favorite of the year because we all work in our individual ways the whole year on trying to make change in our communities in whatever ways that we all do it. And it's so wonderful for me to see so many people that are committed. And I always leave here hopeful. And I want to ask all of you, as kind of the parting question here, about what gives you hope that we collectively are going to be able to effectively weather the coming storms and also help do our part to reduce climate change. And I'm wondering who would be willing to. Can I start with you, Philip, and we'll just come down the line and we'll end with Andrew? So what gives you hope?
You know, when I look back, I've been in this industry for 30 years, so I'm looking at it from the perspective of a healthcare provider. this wasn't even part of our vernacular 10 years ago, never mind 30 years ago. So I'm hopeful that I see more organizations embracing the concept that this is a business imperative and this isn't something that we can live without. This is something that we must do.
Thank you.
I'll offer three things. The first one picks up on what Philip said. We increasingly, of course, a lot of the resiliency work is around public sector oriented, whether it's public sector funded, public sector driven, regulatory driven, or what have you. But increasingly, I get hope from private sector clients that are looking for and demanding this kind of work, the work that we do in resiliency and climate change. I have hope because I believe, and again, I'm all in on Maine, that we as a people and as a state are resilient, and we will adapt and we will do ultimately what we must do to adapt because we have to.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just going to build on your comment. When things are easy, being resilient is pretty easy. You're never really challenged. The last year has required real resilience. And when I look around and I look at the number of people whose lives I know have been upended, and they are continuing on the mission, they know that it's just a matter of time before things resettle, and they're continuing to pursue what they think is right. And that's just an inner strength that's infectious. So
Infectious. I love that.
What gives me hope? I think it's the people I get to work with every day, to watch the sort of gravity well form around one idea and suddenly have a big community of architects and developers and people on the factory floor all kind of aggregate around this concept and be so supportive of it has been profoundly moving to watch over the past 5 years.
I want to thank all four of you for spending time today with this group, sharing your wisdom, your hope, and all of the amazing actions you're taking for your businesses. Let's have a round of applause.
Thank you, Christina.